Hi, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, Michael?
Good. Very glad to be back.
All right. Yeah, no, I was about to say we only had two pretty short questions. So like before this, I was debating like maybe we should just skip today's open class. But then I was like, but these even the shortest questions can trigger really good discussions. And who doesn't like to pontificate? So
there we go. We're in the right place.
So yeah, with that said, let's jump in and talk about these questions. So let me share my screen here. And as always, nothing medical advice here, just me and Michael pontificating, as we said before. Okay, so this is actually Roger had a similar question that I answered the other day, but since there were a few questions, and I think this is a common one, I said, why don't we go over this one as well? So Roger says, I have been struggling with paradoxical insomnia for years, unsure of how to escape and achieve restful, restorative sleep. Can you help? What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, yeah. First, almost all insomnia seems like it's kind of paradoxical, misperceived sleep, that kind of idea. So, when you talk about trying to escape, that kind of term sort of, it kind of is the wrong direction. You don't want to run from any kind of worries or concerns or anxieties about sleep that can drive hyperarousal, which can lead to a stronger misperception, paradoxical insomnia kind of a condition. So that was just kind of right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think I was thinking, like, for someone who's maybe new to the channel and is like, what's paradoxical insomnia? What is that about? Well, basically, it's to anyone tuning in here, it's when the perception of how much you slept and how much you actually slept is quite different. It's also called like sleep state misperception. You don't really know how much, and you underestimate. But also the kind of textbook one is like let's call it the textbook case is somebody who says, I don't sleep at all. I literally don't sleep at all. You test them with EEG and they slept like 6 hours. That's kind of like the textbook one, but that's unusual. I think in most instances is somebody who in reality sleeps maybe like 5 hours, but they think they slept 2 or something like that. And I think I always want to start with kind of normalizing it and saying, like you said, that in my opinion, there's nothing different from what we generally call insomnia and paradoxical insomnia, except for the way it is experienced. So when you look at studies, like this, you take 1,000 people and you ask everyone, how are you sleeping? Do you have any trouble sleeping? And let's say 800 say I sleep fine, and 200 say like, no, I have insomnia. And then you check objectively how much they sleep. You'll find that the average sleep duration is about 6 hours and 50 minutes or something like that. But the ones who said they don't have trouble sleeping, they think they slept 7 hours, and the ones who had trouble sleeping, they think they slept 5 hours. So there's this is like everyone has some sleep state perception,
Yeah, exactly.
Different directions. And the way I think of paradoxical insomnia is that when that underestimating how much you sleep becomes kind of the dominant part of how you experience your insomnia, that's paradoxical insomnia. Would you say the same?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when they do EEG recordings and they give them blind to a sleep expert to say who has insomnia, who doesn't, they can't identify who does and who doesn't. You think it'd be obvious when you talk to someone with insomnia, says, oh, I haven't slept for a couple of nights at all, and then you put them in a lab and they go, see, I hardly slept at all. Those actually objective recordings, a sleep expert can't differentiate those from a quote unquote normal sleeper or someone who doesn't struggle with insomnia. So there's definitely like a misperception that's so common with most insomnia. It's almost like a given. And then, like you said, someone who feels like they sleep well, they kind of tend to overestimate their sleep. Probably part of that is because they kind of feel like, well, society says I should get 7 or 8 hours. So I'm just going to say I get 7 or 8 hours. You don't want to raise suspicion, but sure enough, when they record them in research studies, they're sleeping pretty close to the same 6.5, right in there. So there's just a lot of misperception. Even among people who don't struggle with insomnia, there's misperception.
And now an interesting thing here from, when we hear from Roger is that Roger knows that he has paradoxical insomnia, which is kind of
Hmm.
interesting because Roger knows that he sleeps more than he thinks he does, which then is almost like, well, then you almost don't have it because you're like you're aware of it. So I think
Yeah.
the first thing I want to say to Roger is this one, that there's nothing different in my opinion between like just insomnia and paradoxical insomnia. It's just a little difference in how you experience it. And number two then becomes doing the same thing, like learning about insomnia, understanding where it comes from, understanding hyperarousal, and understanding that whenever we are afraid of being awake at night for whatever reason, and we try not to be, when we try to escape discomfort, we get more of it. And then finally, I was going to say, to some people, just knowing that I sleep more than I think I do, that can be really reassuring. So I think those were the three kind of like things I would say to Roger, and just like
Yeah.
learn here in the channel, and you'll do really well.
Yeah, and I would also just kind of conclude, like, it's probably best not even to track your sleep, to really think on about how much you slept. It's when the night is over, it's over. You face the day and you enjoy your day. You don't dwell, you don't review, you don't hyperanalyze, don't get all analytical with like a Fitbit thing or your CPAP, whatever tracking stuff. What happened, it's done. And enjoy your day.
I literally like I tend to work with my clients on BedTyme. This is getting blurry. I don't know why, but in the mornings, and I literally just today got a message from someone named Sarah, and she said, I only woke up once last night, and that hasn't happened in my whole life. I always struggle with sleep. And she said she has not been checking the time, and she says, I think I fall asleep in what feels like 10 minutes. I don't even know. And like, I'm such a believer now in the timeless method, 100%. Like, just go timeless. Don't track how much you sleep, and just go timeless is so important. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Really
There's some live goes. So Roger, and let us know if that helps or not. Here's Alejandro says, hello, I've been struggling with insomnia for 6 months. Sorry to hear this, but super glad you're here. I can't stress how many times people tell me like I had trouble sleeping for years, and I wish I heard what you say here. I wish I heard that in the beginning. So I just want to say that I think Alejandro, just stay here. Like, go to the playlist, check out the success stories playlist, check out This Is Natto, check out things here, and I think you'll understand and you'll do well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's Jake. Jake says, thanks for Monday's advice, Michael. I'm getting a solid 8 unbroken hours a night. Also, thanks to you, the channel, and everyone involved. You've been far more useful than this is amazing. So happy to hear this, Jake. So cool. Love it.
Yeah. Insomnia is different. It's not like a medical condition and that you need a specific test for and medication for and all this. It's different. It's just different. So
it's education. Coaching. And I always, when I get a message like this, first of all, I'm just generally happy, just like happy to hear this. But then second thing I always like to say is that, Jake, you were in a place where, things were scary and uncertain. And you probably heard me and Michael say things that didn't make sense to you. Like, why should I not check my time? Why should I maybe spend a little less time in bed? Why should I do that? But you listened, you learned, and you went in the direction of, instead of escaping, you went in the direction of kind of facing the fear, and you did great thought work, and that's led you here. So well done. Jake.
Yep, excellent. Great
also, to hear. That was such a nice one. Zoltan, what's up?
Hey. Hey, Zoltan.
Zoltan says, I wish I never saw that Fatal Insomnia documentary. It's been an occasional anxiety, but not every night. Yeah, it's these super rare things that people make documentaries about to me, almost for the obvious reason that it is triggering, right? Why else would you make a documentary about it? They probably say it's just for educational purposes, but in reality, people who make this documentary, they know that it's fear that's going to lead people to watch it. And what can I say?
It's really too bad that it's such a misnomer, that's SFI. And, I wonder, I don't know because I'm not a medical researcher, but I wonder how many other kind of like neurological conditions have a component like towards the end of its progression where sleep deteriorates.
Mm.
I wonder if, like, is
Alzheimer's, like
Alzheimer's, dementia, I wonder about that. I don't know. I can't say that I'm an expert in that in any way, but I wonder, and I wouldn't be surprised if, most of them that happened at the end of that condition. But this one just has the word insomnia in the name. And so it's, you Google it and there it is. It's got the word insomnia in the name. And so it's easy for people to kind of, get anxious about that.
Now, in a little bit different direction here, like, at some point I was almost about to write a letter to like the CDC or like, what is that? The WHO, and say like, create a petition. Can we change the name of this condition?
Change the name.
But which I think does make sense. But on the flip side, then I wonder if it wouldn't almost cause like these conspiracy theories, people like they change the name so we don't So I'm like, now I'm kind of like, let's just leave that battle and like educate people. And
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to our next question, which is from Linda. And Linda says, where is it here? She says, I don't know if this is a question for the forum, but I'm considering enrolling in your class or getting the app. Can you explain more about how your program works? Is there sleep restriction involved? I'm currently working with CBTI. And I want to say that I'm very glad that you're considering joining our forum and the app. So we can just talk about, I think, what the programs are and then the philosophy. Let's talk about the philosophy. But so BedTyme is an app. Let me show it to everyone that's interested. Here, things spelled like that. It's that easy. It's basically an app, and it has a free trial, by the way. Anyone interested, it has a free trial. So you can always just like download it, start the free trial, and you can just unsubscribe like the first day, and then you're not going to get charged. So that's kind of like, and by the way, if you want to go for our self-coaching master program, I don't know if we updated this on the website yet, but it's like we have a 30-day. If you don't love it, we'll refund you. So either way, feel free to check them out. But I would say, like, my experience so far has been that for the 2 or 3 people who have done both, who have both joined the self-coaching master program, which is video-based classes plus a forum, a Slack-based forum where you can answer any questions in a group setting, and a weekly drop-in class, which I'm going to do actually after this. That's kind of like, that's the setting for the teaching, And so for those people who have done both that and the app, which is a text-based curriculum and built-in coaching, for those who have done both, my feedback has been that most people have felt that the app was better for most. I think the app is better because it is one-on-one, and especially when if you are kind of anxious and you feel sort of vulnerable and you don't necessarily want to share in a group setting, then working with one coach one-on-one may be best for you. But on the other hand, if you have if you actually want to be in a group and talk to other people who are kind of on the same path, then the self-coaching master program is great for you. Now, philosophy-wise, what is our philosophy, and do we do sleep restriction?
Well, I don't do sleep restriction. In fact, the more clients I work with, the less and less it even comes up. It's just it's a great way to generate more anxiety. It really is. That's basically my conclusion. If someone's struggling with insomnia and you talk about sleep restriction, you're going to generate anxiety. So I don't, that's not a big component. I think on the other hand, I think, and I don't like the term sleep restriction, right? It's more like in bed restriction, time in bed restriction. I think a bit of it kind of happens naturally, I think, is the best way to put it. When you go with like a fuzzy bedtime where you're not going to bed at a specific time, you're going to bed simply because you feel sleepy and kind of going that route, keeping morning, generally consistent. I think time in bed naturally kind of settles in. When people get more confident in their sleep, they feel less of a need to climb into bed earlier, to kind of like, I just want to be there in case I fall asleep. it's really relaxing and I'm so anxious. I just want to feel comfortable. And so they go and they tend to spend extra time in bed, which almost always is they're awake during that extra time. So it kind of naturally happens, I think. But I don't, I don't track it. I don't think it's a big part at all of the natto philosophy, not being attached to your sleep. So that's, but it's a big component with traditional CBTI. It's like a big focus. And I think it just creates so much anxiety that I don't, it's not part of my philosophy and generally not with the school.
And no, totally. And just to give a little bit more context, for those of you who never heard, maybe you never heard of it, what's sleep restriction? Well, it's basically this idea that when you have insomnia, that you're spending too much time in bed, which may be true, but then the focus becomes just like, but now what you got to do is you got to get up early and you got to spend not more than a pretty strict amount. Like you should only be like 5.5 hours in bed so that you're really sleepy when you go to bed, and then you sleep through the night, and then you can gradually extend that. And in traditional CBTI, they talk about sleep efficiency, where you calculate how many hours you slept out of the hours you were in bed, and you extend the sleep window based on sleep efficiency. As you can tell, this is kind of nerve-wracking. It produces so much anxiety that, I don't think it's helpful at all. And I think the first time I met you, Michael, which was now, maybe 2.5 years ago or something like that. It was interesting because in my journey, I was still sort of doing sleep restriction, but kind of not very strict. But I think you had already abandoned that. Like, so I think we talked about this privately, but I think it's nice to share with everyone. Like, when did you ever do kind of traditional sleep restriction or CBT, or did you never do that, or when did you leave it, or what happened?
Yeah, a long time ago, I would help patients in labs with sleep restriction. But I found it just, pretty quickly, I found it kind of weird that you just spend so much time like focusing on and calculating the sleep efficiency. And I just felt like that was really kind of missing the big picture, right? Because like we were just talking about earlier about perception of sleep, since a person doesn't really know how much they're sleeping, like it's pretty well documented that people are not particularly accurate. It's almost like it almost begs the question, like, why are we trying to calculate a specific sleep efficiency if you don't even know that you're accurate in one of the two main numbers? Like everyone can be accurate about time in bed. If you go to bed at midnight, you're out of bed at 6, it's 6 hours. That's easy. But how much did you sleep? It's not accurate. And so you need that number to be accurate, to get an accurate sleep efficiency. And so I kind of just sort of found myself like talking about other things and not really focusing on that more and more. Like found myself kind of focusing on the morning and keeping it consistent and getting some natural light, like really, really simple things. And then the evening bedtime was kind of like helping people identify that they're getting truly sleepy. I still to this day think that's a very important part of good sleep, is a person being able to recognize for themselves that they're more than tired, that they're starting to feel a bit sleepy, which is more of like that mental lapse kind of experience, and simply recognizing that, and then that's when you probably want to put yourself in bed. If that's where you're going to sleep, that'd be a good time to put yourself in bed. And then it's not like go to bed at midnight or after, or right close to midnight, or if you go to bed at midnight and if you're awake for 30 minutes, then get out of bed again. All these really rigid, strict kinds of things, with sleep restriction kind of being the center of it. It just didn't make sense after a short while. So that was my experience.
You saw it early on, Michael. That's amazing. And I just want to write something real quick here. If for Linda and everyone else, like there's a playlist called This Is Natto in the description. It's going to be in the description of this video and any other new video. You can check out the playlist to learn more about the philosophy, or you can buy the book. You can buy the book This Is Natto too to learn more about the philosophy. And there is a ton of free resources here, so you may not even need any of the programs we have. But I hope that answered your questions, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, Zoltan is live with us and says, you talked about not tracking your sleep. I used to not do that, but recently I have, and it does help because there's no expectation. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. It does help because there's no expectation.
It's like a double negative. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, maybe you can clarify, Zoltan. But what I found that almost always it's helpful not to track your sleep. That's been my general observation. I had, though, an interesting comment from a client that I picked up on, and this interesting one. And he said, by using a tracker, then I feel like I don't have to track myself, and then I kind of like don't track it. The problem with, of course, in my mind becomes then if you wake up in the morning and you check how much you slept, it still becomes this kind of like performance anxiety. Like, I didn't sleep, I got to sleep more. I slept, oh, that's great, I got to do that again. But it was interesting. I think, and this goes to your point, Michael, if somebody uses a tracker and they're sort of like, that keeps them from tracking themselves. So I have a tracker, I don't have to do it myself, I don't have to pay attention. That can weirdly lead towards less attention. And then if they do what you say, then check it later, check it in the night. Maybe that could work, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I suggest people do. I ask them, I go, do you track your sleep? And if they say, yeah, like a Fitbit thing or those CPAP machines, they track like hours of usage, and it kind of implies like how much you slept, right? And so I asked, the next question is, do you check it like in the morning, like when you get up? And if they say, yeah, that's kind of like first thing I do. I just get up and look at my numbers, and I just say, how about like for a while you check it at the end of the day, like when you're making dinner or something, check your data from the night before. And most people find that kind of helps, because it's a bit of a rhetorical question to say, how does it help you sleep to track your, how does tracking your sleep help you sleep, right? It's like, how does checking the time at night help you sleep? How does it help? And I find that it kind of just, the time checking generates anxiety for most people, kind of that performance anxiety. And then tracking sleep, it's not, I kind of gently try to help them understand it's not particularly accurate. It's going to vary. And so what's the point, right? It'd be like tracking something else that isn't really accurate. What's the point of tracking it? On the flip side, if people are not struggling with their sleep, they just kind of want to they're into sleep, they kind of like to tinker with stuff. Fantastic. Track away. It's like no issues, right? There's no hyperarousal. They don't struggle with insomnia. Track away. Enjoy it. You got this gadget, that gadget, compare them, whatever you want to do. Run 10 miles one day, don't do anything the next day. You can compare your data. Have fun. Enjoy it. It's kind of interesting. But if you're struggling with insomnia and it's really a big anxiety associated condition, then I think it's time to consider, at least for a while, not tracking your sleep. I don't tell people to do it for the rest of their life. I just say, hey, how about like a couple of weeks? Would you miss the data? And usually they're like, no, I can do that. And then they usually find that they really don't miss it, and they kind of don't go back to it.
Absolutely. Let's say what Zoltan said. I mean, not worrying about how much or little you sleep, that always helps. 100%, Zoltan. Thanks for adding this. And it just brings up this irony again of like, for someone who has absolutely no trouble with sleep, you can track it, no problem. Or you can take some melatonin or sleepy time tea, or but of course it's almost never that. It's almost always the person who struggles who does the thing to sort of control sleep and tweak it and get it better. But that's the irony of everything, that the person who sleeps well can pretty much do whatever you want. But if you're struggling, then you should probably do as little as possible.
At least have an experience for a while of that. Yeah. And usually a person then realizes like, oh yeah, it kind of helps and all that. One of my jokes is, I'm older than you. There used to be this thing on TV called Movies Till Dawn when I was a kid. And it was like back when, TV was, like I'm talking like the 70s, Movies Till Dawn. And so I like to, sometimes to this day, I'll say, if you don't struggle with your sleep, what Movies Till Dawn? Why not? Enjoy it, but, I just say that kind of silly in a silly way. But it kind of is the same point that, insomnia is different.
100%. And I would just want to add one last thing here, which was when I talked to Riley. Actually, we did an open class with Riley like maybe 4 weeks ago or something like that. And he kind of like just said to somebody that had a question, it's like, please. And he didn't even say like you, like maybe try it for a week, or he's just like one night. He's just like, try to go timeless for one night. That's how much he believes in it. And I was like, that when you, it's kind of like when your friend or your spouse tells you something, you're like, oh, that's interesting. But sometimes you hear it from someone else, like, yeah, you're right. And it's kind of like, when I hear from Riley, like who struggled himself, like just tried for one night, I was like, yeah,
Right.
that's really big.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not like you're trying to do it, you're just not doing it. Right. So
Yeah.
I don't look at it as really an effort, because you're not trying, you're just not doing it.
Exactly.
But then just as important, super quick, you have to have something else to do besides staring at the wall, trying to guess what time it is all night long. Right. You got to have something you like enjoy the time, enjoy the time you're spending awake. Don't try to enjoy the time. Getting lost in the weeds here, but you know what I'm saying? Have something you like to do. You got to befriend wakefulness. You have to be okay with being awake, and then have that thought download during the day that goes right along with it.
Somebody just read your mind here. Neil says, I really think it's better to learn to do things you enjoy and be totally engaged in it, then sleep-related thoughts will have less room in your mind.
100%. Thanks,
perfect. Let's end on that great note. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michael. And
you got it. Thanks, everybody.
We'll be back next week.
Yep. Take care, everybody.